You really got us thinking about how important that connection is between families and schools, for helping kids thrive.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome. You didn't just, get us thinking about it. You actually sent us a bunch of really interesting stuff.
Right.
Articles, research, even your own notes
Absolutely, yeah.
to really dig into this.
Yeah, and looking through it all, it seems like everything kind of comes back to this one big idea, right? Like,
Mm.
what happens when the people who are most invested in a kid, their family, and their teachers,
Yeah,
when they're really on the same page and working together?
totally. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
Right.
So these things called family school partnership interventions, which, might sound kind of jargony, but it's
Yeah.
basically any time that parents and teachers, team up
Right.
to do something, very intentionally to help a child
Mm.
grow and learn and succeed, not just in their schoolwork, but, socially, emotionally, at home, in the classroom, kind of the whole picture, right?
Yeah, it's like holistic, the whole child.
Exactly. So our mission today is to look at all this research you shared
Okay.
and really pull out, like, what are the most important things that we're learning
Okay.
about how this kind of teamwork actually impacts kids,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, what it means for you,
Yeah.
right? Like, why should we care about this without, getting totally lost in the weeds of all the data?
Yeah, because we all have a sense that, having a good home life
Right.
and having a good school experience is really important for kids.
Of course. Yeah.
But to really see from the research, like what kinds of specific things
Yeah.
really move the needle,
Mhm.
it's super valuable.
Totally. So to get us started, one of the things you sent over that was really cool was this meta-analysis.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes people hear meta-analysis and they're like, huh,
Right.
but basically think of it as a study of other studies.
Mm.
So they take, a ton of research that's already been done
Yeah.
and they try to look for the big patterns.
The big picture.
Yeah, exactly. And this one was by Smith and some other folks back in 2020.
Okay.
And get this, it looked at 77 different studies
Wow.
with over 400 different ways that they were measuring impact. So it's a lot of data.
It's a pretty big sample.
Yeah, huge. And the main finding, like the big takeaway,
Yeah.
overwhelmingly positive.
That's great.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is how broad that positive impact seems to be.
Yeah, tell me more.
So across all these studies, when schools and families were actually doing these partnership things,
Okay.
they saw real changes in a bunch of areas.
Like what?
So first of all, kids' academic achievement, how well they were doing in their classes.
Right.
But it went beyond just grades. They saw improvements in their academic behaviors.
Okay.
So things like, how engaged they were in class, were they getting their homework done?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Also, their social and emotional skills, how well they were getting along with other kids,
Right.
and then even their overall mental health.
Wow. So like across the board.
Yeah, pretty much. And, they use these things called effect sizes to kind of measure this,
Right.
which, those numbers were between like 0.25 and 0.34,
Okay.
which, you might look at that and be like, well, that doesn't sound like a huge number.
Right.
But when you think about how complicated child development is
Yeah.
and how many factors are at play,
Of course it
these
is.
are actually really significant wins. So it's saying that, across all these different studies,
Mhm.
kids are genuinely doing better in lots of ways
Yeah.
when these partnerships are happening.
Right. When everybody's working together.
Exactly. So that's a lot of evidence kind of all pointing in the same direction.
It's really compelling.
And when you really think about it, it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Kids are spending so much of their time in these two key places, home and school.
Absolutely. They're two main worlds.
Yeah, and the researchers in this meta-analysis, they actually connect it to this idea called ecological systems theory.
Okay. I've heard of that.
Yeah, so this was developed by a psychologist named Bronfenbrenner back in the 70s.
Okay.
And it basically says a child's development is really shaped by all the different layers of their environment,
Right.
right? So everything from their immediate family to their neighborhood to the larger society.
Mm-hmm.
But home and school are kind of these two most immediate direct influences.
Yeah. The most important ones, probably.
Absolutely. And he called those the microsystems.
Right.
So you could almost picture it, right? Home is one bubble, school is another bubble.
Yeah. Like two little worlds.
Exactly. And what family-school partnerships do is they directly affect how those two bubbles interact.
Interesting.
The connections between them. So Bronfenbrenner called that the mesosystem.
Okay.
So when parents and teachers are on the same page, they're communicating well. Working together, you're basically making this stronger, more supportive link.
Yeah, like building a bridge.
Yes, exactly, between these two super important worlds for that child.
That makes a lot of sense.
So now we have a good idea that, okay, these partnerships are good,
Right.
but let's get a little more specific.
Yeah, let's dive in.
What kinds of things are they actually doing together that are leading to these great results?
Yeah, what works best?
Exactly. So in this meta-analysis, they broke down these interventions
Uh,
into different kinds of actions.
uh,
So some of them were about the activities themselves, like what they were doing together, and they called those the structural components.
okay, so like what kind of programs they were doing?
Exactly. And then some of them were more about the relationships between the parents and teachers.
Okay.
So like the quality of their connection, and they
Interesting.
called those the relational components.
Such as, so it's not just what you do, but how you do it.
Exactly. And what they found about which of these matters most is actually really interesting.
Okay, I'm curious.
So let's start with the structural stuff.
Right?
This study found that home-based involvement was like the real MVP.
Home-based involvement, okay?
Yeah, so what does that even mean?
Yeah, break that down for me.
It's basically when parents are actively involved in supporting their child's learning and their behavior, but at home.
So not necessarily at school.
Not just at school, yeah. So this could be things like helping with homework, reading together,
Right.
having conversations about what happened at school, just showing interest in their learning.
Mm-hmm. Staying engaged with their world.
Yeah, and this one thing, home-based involvement, it showed really strong positive effects
Right.
on how well kids were doing academically, their behavior in school, and then those social behavioral skills we talked about.
So it's not just about showing up at school events or something.
Not just showing up, yeah, it's really about bringing that learning into the home environment.
Cool.
And what's kind of surprising is that some other structural things, like just the homework, help on its own as part of an FSP, or parents just attending school events, but not having that deeper connection at home,
Right.
or even just having a behavioral support plan, without that home component.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, they didn't actually show as big of an impact.
Wow. So it really is about linking those two worlds.
It seems like it, yeah. So when the efforts at home and school are really connected,
Yeah.
when parents are actively reinforcing the learning and the positive behaviors at home, that's where you see the biggest difference.
You'd think just showing up more at the school would be enough.
You would think, right.
But it's more nuanced than that.
It is. It's really interesting. So that was the structural stuff.
Okay.
And now let's look at the relational stuff. So that's all about those connections.
Right, the relationship.
And communication.
Yeah.
And here we also see some really strong effects.
Tell me about those.
All right. So school-to-home communication, that was a big one.
School talking to the parents, basically.
Exactly. So this is when the school is proactively reaching out
Okay.
to families, giving them information, updates on how their child is doing, what's happening in the classroom.
Keeping them in the loop.
Yeah, and this one had a huge positive effect on academic achievement,
That makes sense.
but also on their social behavioral competence, even their mental health. And get this, the effect size for social behavioral competence was huge.
Really?
Yeah, almost 0.84.
Wow. So just keeping parents informed makes that big of a difference?
It seems to, yeah, so not just how well they're doing in school,
Yeah.
but also how they're interacting with others, how they're feeling emotionally.
That's huge.
So it seems like when schools take that initiative to keep families in the loop,
Yeah.
it really helps.
It makes them feel like partners.
Exactly. And beyond that, bidirectional communication, so that's that two-way street,
Right, back and forth.
where information is flowing both from school to home and from home to school, that significantly impacted social behavioral competence.
Okay, interesting.
And then when you look at collaboration, which is where parents and teachers are actually, planning together.
Right, like problem solving.
Yeah, working together to solve any challenges, that had a significant effect on achievement,
Good.
social behavioral competence, and mental health.
So it's not just the school talking at the parents.
Right.
It's about having a real conversation.
Exactly, a real back and forth.
That makes sense.
And what's interesting here is that home-to-school communication on its own,
Okay.
and just the general parent-teacher relationship, without those more active elements like collaboration or that two-way exchange, those didn't have quite as much of an impact.
Interesting. So it's not just any communication. It's got to be the right kind.
Exactly. It's about the quality and the nature of that communication.
Makes sense.
So this is giving us a much clearer picture of the specific things that are really driving these positive impacts. It's not just like, oh, be involved. It's very specific actions and ways of communicating.
Yeah, specific strategies.
And then, another thing they looked at in this study was whether these effects varied depending on the child's age.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because what a 5-year-old needs might be totally different from what a 15-year-old needs.
Yeah, of course. Different developmental stages.
Exactly. So were there any interesting differences based on age?
There were, actually.
Tell me.
They found that two-way communication, that back and forth, seemed to have a stronger positive effect on the social behavioral competence of older students.
Okay, so middle school, high school.
Yeah, that age range.
So even as kids are getting older, and, maybe they want their parents to back off a little.
Right, more independence.
Having that open communication is still so important.
It's about staying connected.
Yeah. And they also found that when schools and families were working together on behavioral supports,
Okay.
that was more impactful for older students in terms of their academic behaviors.
So it's still important even when they're teenagers.
It really seems like it, yeah. So for older kids, those more targeted strategies for supporting positive behavior when they're done in collaboration can still make a big difference.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so family-school partnerships, not just for elementary school.
Right, the whole journey.
The whole thing. All right, so we've talked about what works.
Yeah.
But of course, a really important question is, does this work for everyone?
That's the key question, right?
Yeah, like, are we seeing these benefits for all students?
Equity is so crucial.
Absolutely. So they looked at that in the study, too.
And what did they find?
And the good news is they didn't find any significant differences in how effective these interventions were based on a child's race or ethnicity.
That's great news.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. It means that when these partnerships are done well, they have the potential to really benefit all students.
That's what we want.
Exactly. So you mentioned earlier a couple of specific programs.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those, just to make this a little more real?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the intro to the study, they mentioned one called SHELLS.
SHELLS, okay.
Which stands for Storytelling for the Home Enrichment of Language and Literacy Skills.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. But it's a really cool example of a program that really focuses on that home-based involvement.
Okay.
So it's all about encouraging parents to support their young children's literacy by sharing stories, engaging with books together at home.
Awesome. And any others?
Yeah. They also mentioned Parent Core.
Parent Core, okay.
Which is one that really emphasizes the relational side of things.
Okay.
So building strong parent-teacher relationships and really encouraging that collaborative problem solving.
Between home and school.
Exactly. So just a couple of examples of how these different elements can actually be put into practice.
I love those real-world examples. So as we start to wrap up here, what are your biggest takeaways from all this research?
I mean, for me, the main message is really clear. These family school partnership interventions, they have a big impact on kids.
Yeah.
Both academically, socially, emotionally.
The whole picture.
But it's not just about any kind of involvement, right? It's about specific things like parents being actively involved at home, schools communicating clearly with families, and everybody working together.
Collaborating.
Exactly.
And it was so interesting to see how important those relational aspects become as kids get older. That two-way communication, the support for behavior.
It's about staying connected.
Yeah, and of course, the fact that these positive effects seem to hold true for kids from different backgrounds, that's huge. It means that this could be a really powerful tool for supporting all students.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
So thinking about everything you've shared,
yeah,
which of these relational pieces do you think is maybe the easiest to put into practice?
That's a good question.
Or maybe could have the most immediate impact?
You know, given how much the research emphasized that school-to-home communication, that seems like a really good place to start. Even just having simple, consistent ways for the school to share information, updates with families, can make a big difference.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm thinking about how crucial that home-based involvement is. What are some ways we can encourage that? Keeping in mind that every family is different.
Right. Everyone's got their own challenges.
Exactly.
I think it starts with schools really understanding their families.
Yeah.
And then offering different options,
Right. Flexible choice.
Resources that are easy to access. So it could be, giving them materials for learning at home.
Yeah.
Simple routines that incorporate learning.
Okay.
Or even using technology to help bridge those gaps.
That's great.
The key is making it feel manageable for families.
Right, not overwhelming.
And really supportive.
This has been so insightful. Thank you so much for taking this depth dive with me.
My pleasure. It's always great to talk about this stuff.
And to you, our listener, we hope this is giving you a much clearer understanding of how powerful these family school partnerships can be.
Absolutely.
And how they can really make a difference for kids.
A real positive change.
And now, as you continue to think about this, we have one final thought for you.
Okay, hit me.
We talked about how vital those relational components are.
Right. Communication, collaboration.
Exactly. So what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles in actually making that happen? You know, in establishing that real two-way communication, that genuine collaboration?
That's a great question.
What are some of the barriers and how do we overcome them?
That's something worth pondering.
Definitely something to keep in mind until our next deep dive.
See you.